I want to be very clear that urban education was already in a crisis.
When it comes to public education, oftentimes there are the haves and the have-nots.
It can be a matter of race, location, or interest. Now it's complicated even more by distance learning.
This is going to be, for most kids, the longest time that they haven't been in a school building.
And we look for answers and also equality in education as we are bridging the divide. Well, thank you for joining us for our second Bridging the Divide special. I'm Todd Quinones.
And I'm Alicia Patillo. The pandemic is magnifying some of the inequalities in our education system.
And this unfortunate pandemic pulled back the veil on the bleak and dire issues that our students face and the inequities that we face.
And that gap now becomes wider as the disparity in resources also becomes more extreme.
And we discuss it all tonight with students, parents, teachers, school officials, and community members.
And hello and welcome to our distinguished panel here for everyone this evening. We want to introduce everyone that we have, and when we do, can you all just give us a nice quick wave so our viewers at home know who you are? I want to first introduce Jay Marshall, parent, Jasmine Burnell, an 11th grade student at Rancho, and Linda Cavazos, CCSD trustee.
And I would like to introduce Alicia Moore, a counselor at Monaco Middle School, Miss Tammy Hansler at Communities and Schools, and Dr. Carla Laria, CCSD's Chief Academic Officer. Again, I just want to thank you all on behalf of Channel 13 for joining this important conversation. I think we can all agree that our children are our future. So I want to get things started right now and hear about the challenges minority and disadvantaged students are facing. And I want to direct this first question to parent Jay Marshall. What do you see as one of the biggest challenges in our schools?
Right now, I see equitable access as a challenge. Access not just to food and digital devices or internet access, but also to appropriate accommodations for those students who are in special education, as well as programs such as GATE and accelerated learning programs. There are problems across the board at a student level as well as the educators level. The educators have access challenges to the resources that they need in order to be successful.
Okay.
And so let me ask the student here among us. Jasmine, thank you again for being with us. As a student yourself, can you relate to us some of the challenges that you may have faced or have witnessed? Now you're in the 11th grade, so you have quite a bit of experience.
Sometimes I've noticed that depending on what part you live in, depends on what you get. Like, I remember growing up, I really didn't have extra help because of what I spoke Spanish only. I didn't really get that much extra help that I needed. And it really put me behind the other students, which really sucked in the long run.
So let me ask you a quick follow-up to that then. How did you manage to catch up? What did you do? What worked for you?
Well, I had to kind of work with myself. Like, I would tell my sister, like, hey, help me with like my Spanish and my English, kind of don't try to forget both of them. And I remember I would like watch shows in English to try to learn it quicker. But in the school system, I really didn't get that much help.
And Alicia, I want to direct this question to you because I know you're a school counselor, so I'm sure that you hear so many stories from kids about their experiences and about their stress levels. So what do you think the biggest challenges in the school system?
So ultimately, for me, what I'm seeing, and I mean, I have my own personal thoughts, but from a minority parent and child's perspective, we are kind of facing where kids share about teachers really not being culturally aware and culturally sensitive to their needs. And when we talk about cultural awareness, there's just things that can be addressed very simple, but practice over time. Things like learning by asking, and not assuming that you know something. You don't want to judge, the student or their experiences or what they're going through at home. Paying attention to nonverbal, behaviors when they're in the classroom. A kid could come to school one week and be super happy, and then the next day they're not as happy. And a simple "How are you?" could open up the dialogue for such a bigger conversation. And really just looking beyond the skin color, looking beyond the race, looking beyond how someone dressed, and really looking beyond just to get to know that student, sharing stories with them, so that you can open up those lines of communication, but really just being culturally sensitive and culturally aware.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Tammy, with communities in schools, when you hear that, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I agree with Alicia. I mean, we're in these schools every day, and we work with a student population that's about 80% students of color, and about 80% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. And there are inequities. They're not the same services in those schools that are in other schools. There's many things that when we place a full-time site coordinator in our schools, we're trying to level out that playing field. And if we can't do that, if we can't help students like Jasmine in school every single day and help her reach her goals, then she'll always be behind. And that's the struggle. So at communities and schools, our goal is to make sure that we are connecting with students across the board, and really make sure that they're getting the support that they need.
Linda, as a CCSD trustee, what do you think is in the way of giving minority and disadvantaged students a fair shot, equal opportunity?
Alicia, I have to say that it's kind of a multifaceted answer here, and some of my fellow panelists have done a terrific job of touching on the different things that are being affected. And I think that the main key here is that we need to look at the unique needs of our minority children. We need to look at them as individuals. All of our demographics are not the same. So if you say you're going to look at this as far as equity and equality, it's not exactly the same. And those terms are used kind of interchangeably a lot. And so if you have a completely equal school where it's kind of horizontal, and let's say that it's a rather affluent school, you can then talk about giving everybody a Chromebook, but they may not have Wi-Fi. So our biggest challenge, I think, is going to be reaching every single student and meeting the needs that they have. And there may be social emotional needs. There may be some issues with mental health. And I think one of the other panelists, Ms. Marshall, also mentioned there could be food inequities. There's all kinds of things. So I think the biggest thing that we're looking at is being able to meet the needs, the unique needs of every single one of our children.
All right, that's a good place to stop for right now. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to hear from Dr. Loria with the CCSD. Everyone stay with us. And welcome back to our special Bridging the Divide, Equality in Education. Okay, right now I want to take the time to bring in Dr. Loria from CCSD to talk about what have you seen that has worked, not only here in Southern Nevada, but perhaps in other school districts that's sustainable.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. That is really a difficult question because communities are so different. And what I know works is when we as a community really understand what are the real needs, the unique needs of our communities, of our students. One thing that I know works in every case is a strong relationship with the student, the teacher and the student, the family and the school. And that alone, I know, regardless of the needs, regardless of the communities, is something that across the nation I have seen work. I have been in different districts and in different states. And building those relationships, that sense of community is important and is something that works. And now going into a new way of educating children where we are meeting them virtually. one of the challenges that I see is how to build that virtual community is new for all of us. We were forced to go into a different way of educating children. And it's going to be imperative for our teachers and our schools and us as a district to really build that virtual community that is going to be very different. I think that our students are better equipped than the adults to become a virtual community, just because they have grown and they have every day they deal with technology that we did not when we were kids. So I do encourage our teachers. We do have the professional development embedded for the teachers before school starts. Actually, they started today. And the next 13 days, there are modules in which teachers can learn tips and how to engage students virtually, how to build relationships and community with the students. And it's going to be new for all of us. We're learning. We are in uncharted territories, really. But I am confident in our teachers and our schools that we're going to be able to build that community with our families.
I want to kind of flip this question, because with this new distance learning, I think it's new for all of us. So I want to direct this question to Jay or maybe Alicia, who are parents that can, what can parents do, to get ready for distance learning? What advice do you have for families, for households to get their children ready? And it's a two-way street. I feel like teachers need to work with parents, parents need to work with teachers. Do you agree with that, Jay?
I do agree with that, and I think that parents can get ahead of the curve by understanding the schedule, first of all, and putting the students on a routine in advance prior to school starting, working together with other individuals in the community who may have experience with setting up learning centers within the home setting and different things like that. So there's a lot that can be done in the home for those students and parents who are able.
Alicia.
I'd like to add just communicating with the teachers as well as the counselors when it comes to, we're all going to be responsible for getting these kids and keeping them on track as far as attendance goes. So really just staying in contact with us. I agree with Jay in regards to creating a schedule, because if you don't have that schedule, the student needs some level of structure. They're getting the structure when they're in school normally. Right now, they need the structure and they need to be in communication with their teachers and their counselors so that we can kind of keep them on track and focused.
I think that's a great point right now to bring Jasmine back into this conversation. Jasmine, you're 11th grader, right? So you're starting to think about your life outside of school and what your future is going to be like. Are you concerned about the idea of virtual learning, of falling behind sort of the greater curve when it comes to other students, maybe in other states, who are going back into the classroom?
I feel like it's going to be harder because in person, you kind of have that one-on-one action. Like if you have a question or if you don't get something, or like after class, hey, can I get extra help with this work? And I feel like with virtual learning, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult.
And what is your thought process about what to do if and when you face some of those challenges and you don't know how to deal with it?
I feel like if you really want to, like, you can always email the teacher, or you can I don't know if there's a thing called Remind, and that's how I usually contact my teachers. And I'll be like, hey, I don't really get this work, or what was the work that we had to do in this day. I feel like if you contact the teacher, it's up to the student in that position to actually get more help.
I think the biggest concern that we had when we were putting together this panel was the virtual learning and how some kids won't have access to internet and a Chromebook. So I'm kind of going to open the floor for anyone that can just chime in on that, because I know everyone on here has an opinion about that. Just how do we help those kids that don't have internet access and will not have a Chromebook What's the solution?
And real quick, let me just say we've got 20 seconds before our next commercial break, but we'll continue on the back end of this commercial break. Go ahead.
So quickly, I'll start. So first of all, Communities in Schools is a public-private partnership. We are actively right now working with the task force and public-private people to get access and devices into the homes of kids. The first thing you guys can do, every parent, fill out that CCSD survey. If you haven't received it, go on the website ccsd.net and fill out the survey, because that will tell us who has access and who doesn't. And so we can start actively reaching out to you. I have more things, but I know you're going to commercial.
All right, that's a good point to end it right there, because that is obviously a huge topic, not only talking about the Chromebooks, but also access to the internet, perhaps the greatest challenge that we as a community face here in Southern Nevada. We'll get back to that after the commercial break.
Welcome back to Channel 13. We are bridging the divide as we talk about education and racial disparities. This is our panel, and we just left off on the inconsistencies with the laptop and internet, and we're talking about what parents can do going forward before we begin distant learning. So I want to talk to Tammy. You were just telling us that there are options for kids that may not have internet or Chromebook.
Yes, so out of the 313,000 Clark County School District students, about 150,000 have completed the survey. So we need people to do that so we can continue to narrow the gap, and we need to find the families and the students that don't have that connectivity so we can connect them. There's a task force working right now, 24/7, that is working on that, and there'll be some new information coming out to the community early next week on ways that we're going to connect our families and our students to not only the internet, but also a device.
Where can they find that survey at?
ccsd.net. If you go there, it's right on the website, and you can click it in English or in Spanish.
Okay.
And let's go back to Alicia Moore now, a school counselor, and you know a lot about this, a program that's out there. It's called Connect to Compete. Tell us what that's all about.
So Connect to Compete is a service that any student who receives free or reduced lunch can get this internet service for $9.95 a month rather than you paying $60 or $70. One thing to keep in mind is that if you do have internet now, you can't cancel your service and then get this program in replace of it. You won't be accepted. It's actually going to be denied. Also, the service will be, you can go in to Cox, or you can go on cox.com, type in connect the number 2 to compete, and that's how you'll have access to internet service. So for any child that gets free and reduced lunch, if the whole school is a free and reduced lunch school, all you have to do is verify that you are at that school, and they will connect you as well. If you have any past due bills or anything like that, they'll work with you and you can make small payments, but they're gonna give you internet access.
Dr. Carla, I think you wanted to add something on this matter, correct?
Yes, because in cases in which the cable cannot be connected, there's sometimes issues with the infrastructure or any other issue. There will also be hotspots available from CCSD to qualifying families. And so it is important to, and I'm going to just repeat what Tammy said, for us to hear from every family. We're doing, and the schools are doing a tremendous job trying to reach out to every family, but we do not always have the updated information to contact families. So please, call the school, connect to the website and complete the survey, because we do need to hear from every family. The goal for CCSD is to become one-to-one by the end of the fall, and that means one device for each one of our kids. But to be honest and completely transparent, we will not have a one device for every single student when we open school. We have ordered the computers, but they are backlogged. They're coming from China. Everybody, the entire nation is ordering computers. So we're asking for support from the community. If they do have a computer at home that their child can use, we're asking the support of the community and the families to allow the child to use that computer, and so that we can give the devices that we currently have to those children without access to a computer at home. Our goal and our expectation is that by November, we will be able to have one device for every single child.
And real quick, I want to bring back in Jay Marshall right now. And Jay, the digital divide right now is new, but isn't it really just highlighting an old problem that we've been trying to deal with for decades and beyond in our school systems?
It absolutely is highlighting an old problem. Prior to COVID happening, we had some accessibility challenges in a lot of areas, even as it pertains specifically to preschoolers. 42% of eligible students were not enrolled or were enrolled in pre-K prior to COVID happening. That's a large gap between those who were eligible that actually didn't sit inside of those preschool classrooms. And when you continue to drill down into the numbers, it just gets worse. And they're not going to, there's an entire population of parents who do not see the surveys. So the best way to reach them is to put your feet on the ground and go into those areas to safely, with distance, speak to the families that fall in that boundary.
Okay. Right there, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're going to be ending our on-air portion of this, but we're going to continue this conversation online at ktnv.com. And welcome back, everyone, to our special here on Channel 13, Bridging the Divide, Equality in Education. I want to take this time right now to pick up where we left off with parent Jay Marshall and talking about how the digital divide has so clearly exposed the divide that has existed for decades.
Yes, it has been, as I was stating before the break, it's been a major issue for some time now. And I think that we forget about the students who need a safe space to learn. They need a safe space to be able to communicate about what's going on at home. It's more than just the teachers, which we have amazing teachers, but they need their counselors. They need their accommodations and all of those things. So when you don't provide a Chromebook or you don't provide internet access or you don't have someone that's able to actually reach the students who have behavior challenges have been locked up in a way, right, for some time. And that means that their behaviors are going to become more evident. A lot of teachers are not trained to deal with that. And the mental health professionals are already exhausted in our community. So to try to make sure that they have access to even the mental health services digitally, there's an absence there. The divide is more than just a device. It's larger than a device. And unfortunately, many individuals in decision-making positions, they're not connected to those issues because they don't put their feet on the ground in the areas where those issues are prevalent.
And let's talk about that divide. Let's talk about systemic inequality, systemic racism, and cultural misunderstandings or implicit bias in our schools with our students, our brown and Black students that they are facing and their parents are facing. I want to talk to Linda about that. Can you answer that? I mean, how can we bridge that divide? Because that's a deep issue that has been going on for decades. And it seems like with the current climate that we're all facing, COVID, the death of George Floyd, it seems like tensions are very, very high right now.
Alicia, thank you so much for asking that. That is such a relevant question right now with everything that's going on, not only in our district, but across our nation. I think that there's a couple of things here that we need to look at, and that's communication. If we do not have clear, consistent communication and resources for our parents so that they can help their students, and Jay put it very well when she said it's not just about the devices, but we need to be able to look at what they need. So if we have a parent that tries to contact the teacher and is trying to get some individual help for their child, but if the teacher doesn't have a good understanding of maybe some of the other things going on in the home, we're going to have a gap there, and it's going to be a cultural gap. it's going to be not just a digital divide, but it's going to be a lack of the parent feeling understood. And we also have to look at, our staff, our teachers, and as Jay had said, the mental health professionals. Right now, I receive so many referrals, and this is because our social workers, our psychologists, our counselors, as Alicia had said, they're trying their best, but there are so many pressures, and these kids are very aware. They're they're much more adept and skillful at knowing what's going on right now. So with the Black Lives Matter movement and with all of the other social inequities that have been brought to the forefront, they're very aware of this, and their parents want to know how they can best help them.
And I'm curious from an administrative standpoint, Dr. Luria, do you think it has to help, right? The more diversity that we see in key leadership positions, I would assume the better that district is at addressing some of these issues.
I agree with you 100%. I believe that students need to see people who look like them in leadership roles. And we as leaders need to understand that, this issue of inequities and racism is something that it's so present, and it's so difficult for us to really engage in true conversations that will lead to change. I spoke before about building the relationships with the students, but it goes so much, beyond that. It's in the differentiation of the lessons from a teacher standpoint. Is us as the leaders looking at the data as the systemic data and understanding how are we even analyzing that data. When we look at, for example, behaviors, and we see how much more negative consequences students who are Black or brown receive as compared to their peers. We look at it, we know it's there, but then what are we going to do about that data? And those are difficult conversations to have with a school, with another leader, amongst ourselves. But starting at the top, having that diversity, I believe it's important for students to see. I can be there as well. I can get in the future to lead and be in leading positions to make a change. But it's difficult, and we need to just confront ourselves with our own biases sometimes.
Jasmine, as a person of color, and going to school, and you're in 11th grade, but I know that you face some racism, you can say, in school. So I want to hear about that experience from you. Can you let our panel know and our viewers know what type of racism you experienced in school, in your school district?
Quite a bit, actually. I live in a more Caucasian side of town. So in middle school, or in elementary school, I got bullied a lot because I was the little Mexican kid who couldn't speak English. So kids found a way to pick at that. And on top of that, I remember in middle school, this teacher threw something at me and the district didn't do nothing about it, which really hurt me because it meant that my voice couldn't be heard. And another thing that happened was there was this kid who didn't speak English, and I was speaking to him in Spanish in a bus. And the bus driver was, speak English so I could understand you, but in a really rude way. And I was stunned that happened. And after that, I really didn't feel comfortable being on the school bus because I felt like, well, if I speak the language that I know, I'm gonna get in trouble.
And Alicia Bamora, the school counselor, Jasmine's story must sound terribly familiar.
All too familiar. I can definitely relate to what she's saying because we are consistently having to counsel students who are experiencing exactly what Jasmine experienced. Also, I believe in what I see sometimes is students are judged just by being in large groups together of minority. If a minority group kind of band's in one corner, it's kind of like they're up to something, which is it's pretty harsh. If they're, you know, a little louder than the other group, that gets judged differently as well. And the punishments are definitely harsher when they are being RPC'd or sent out of school. They're out much longer than their peers who are not of minority, who are not minorities, really.
And so I'm just curious, just as you're describing that, just a thought occurred to me, is in some way, is there a strange opportunity here with distance learning to at least be able to destroy or at least level off some of that stereotyping and grouping people together? Does anyone see that in education? Or Jay, you're shaking your head no, and anyone want to go ahead?
It actually creates a hiding place for teachers who don't face their bias. They can hide behind the computer screens. They're able to just keep it strictly towards what it is that the schedule says that they're supposed to do. And unfortunately, skin complexion does not equate to relatability. I don't know why people seem to think that, but it also has a lot to do with where that teacher's experience in education comes from. If you have not taught in inner city schools and you do not affiliate with individuals from the inner city, then you will not know how to reach them. And compassion in a person's heart can only go so far. So for teachers who are now having to teach through the equalizing effect of the pandemic, they get to hide behind this computer screen and the monitor, and they get to not be forced to deal with it on top of the workload that they have, right? Because I'm not going to take away from that. They have an enormous workload, which is a valid reason. But many teachers have expressed that they are uncomfortable dealing with certain issues or situations that comes with students of different socioeconomic backgrounds. And so when you have not had the experience, the training, or the exposure to such things, then it's a recipe for disaster. And, you know, El Sheba may be able to speak more, and Ms. Trustee Cavazos, when I say this, there are warning signs that children demonstrate when they are coming from different situations at home. And if you have never lived through those situations or been exposed to them, you will not pick up on those cues that the students are giving. There is a lot of nonverbal communication that students exchange, and we've got a lot of growing to do. Yes.
Dr. Carla, as someone who works with CCSD, in CCSD, I mean, do we need to change the curriculum? Do we need to change the training, reconstruct the training? And we go back to, I remember being in kindergarten and I didn't look at skin color. I mean, we all held hands and looked at each other as equal, but I feel like we need to talk about that in middle school and in high school. We need to put that in the curriculum, right?
Yes, I think that we need to constantly be looking at the curriculum that is actual, that is accurately helping students understand the world that we're living in. It's a constant process, and it's really where everybody needs to take part of it. Parents, we need to hear from parents, we need to hear from students of the impact or the reactions or the emotions that are brought to them when they are looking at certain piece of the text, for example, that is in the curriculum. I do believe also the training needs to change, and we have started providing training on biased thinking, on racism as a district. We are phasing it in. Is it enough? Absolutely not. It's just the first steps of a long road, because it's going to take a long time. But most of all, it's going to take the commitment from everyone in the district to seriously look at this as a factor that is impacting in a negative way our students. And the commitment to really understand that because of that, our students are going to suffer. And we are the ones who can actually make a change by having these difficult conversations. They are tough conversations, but we need to have them as a system and do something about it. We cannot just talk about it. We need to actually take some actions.
And Jasmine, I'm curious, growing up in the school district, do you feel like you
maybe they've experienced a traumatic behavior. Maybe they can't see the blackboard because they need glasses. Maybe they were hungry. I mean, there's a variety of different issues why our students are experiencing different things. And we have to start asking more questions, putting more caring adults in the building. The teachers can't do it by themselves. They're already teaching 40 kids. We need to make sure that we put more counselors in there, more social workers, more people that can start working with our kids and really getting to the core of the problem. Because if you have that one-to-one relationship, if Jasmine would have had a one-to-one relationship in her school, maybe she wouldn't have been bullied as much, or maybe she would have felt like we didn't let her down, right? I mean, what are we telling our students if we're not looking at them as individuals and showing them that they care and that they're less than? That's the message that we want to make sure that we're changing. They're not less than. Everybody matters.
And I want to use that opportunity to say that we had some technical issues here, but we are now back online. And to your point, Jasmine, it cut off as you were speaking, but I thought what you said was so important and so powerful. We're talking about the awareness, the cultural awareness of students with the history of minorities, and feeling like there's a real serious absence of understanding, and that impacts students like yourself.
I feel like schools need to kind of tell more, like, be more diverse in a way, like not just focus on, hey, this lecture or this. I feel like we have to kind of teach kids, hey, we all bleed red. We are all the same. We're all equal, and we should all be represented in some type of way.
You feel
And I
like,
felt,
I'm sorry, the students you went to, they really lacked knowledge of your cultural history and heritage.
yeah, I'm a folkloric dancer, so I like dance with like the long skirts and stuff like that. And like when I would come like in show and tell, they would just all laugh and be like, "Hey," I'm like, "This is my culture." I'm like, I can't help it. And I'm proud. I'm proud of my culture, and I feel so sad that growing up I wasn't as proud. I wasn't proud of who I was, of the language I spoke, of the color of my skin, of my hair texture because of other kids and how they looked and how I didn't feel like I fit in because of the way I looked.
And did you feel that any teacher, any admin, did you express that to them? Did they come to your aid or no?
Yeah, I expressed, well, when I got bullied, I went to a teacher and they're like, oh, it's kids being kids. And like I have bruises, like I still have like scars on my knees because they would like throw me and like things would happen. And not until I went into high school, because I told my mom, I'm done with this. I want to go into a school where I feel a little bit more represented. So I ended up going to Rancho and I felt more represented. I felt like the diversity was better than where I was at. And my elementary school and my middle school, it was a terrible experience. I don't wish anybody the worst or nothing, but I did have experiences where kids and teachers were really racist, but I really just kept my head up through it the whole time.
And Elisheba, I'm curious now as we enter into this distance learning phase, are you especially concerned that you're not going to be able to reach students like Jasmine, or they're not going to have that opportunity to reach out to someone in your position for help?
It's a topic that we have been discussing, just me and my counterparts, as far as what are we going to do and how are we going to be effective with counseling, because we're not sure right now the means of communication. I don't necessarily feel comfortable counseling someone through message. I need to see face. Obviously I can do a video chat, but I don't know what that's going to look like. For us, we are concerned about our what we call frequent flyers, our students who have been struggling, for years, and we follow them. We're concerned about those kids, but it's why we can't stress the importance of parents updating their phone numbers so that we can get access to them, responding to emails, just really keeping the lines of communication open, because it's going to be difficult, like really difficult for sure.
And I don't know if you can speak to this, but I know that on the verge of bullying, social media is a very, very dangerous place for that, especially for racist comments. So do you all have any advice that you can give to parents and teachers to be aware of what's happening on our kids' social media pages?
Is that for me or?
Oh yeah, Alicia, you can answer that, and then we'll open up the floor for us.
Okay. So right now, I think the bigger concern is that because they are going to be on the computer and have internet access, that they're going to be multitasking. They're going to be doing it. They're going to work. They're going to be on social media as well. I think that parents just need to be aware that, one, they're going to be on social media, whether we like it or not. But having access somehow to checking, what kind of tasks, like the time on task of being on social media and being on your whatever Canvas, the actual Canvas learning that they're doing. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know that students are definitely going to be taking advantage of having that 24-hour access, of having computers in front of their faces. So it's almost to the point where when work time is over, they need to pull those laptops. I know they still have phones, but I feel like it's going to get worse just because students they're not together. So they're not going to, the normal going back and forth in school is going to transfer online. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure really how to address that right now. I'm not sure, honestly.
Jay?
Earlier in the year, when we sent out our demands through 1865, one of the things that we requested is for there to be a digital safety class that was issued to all students who were 5th grade and up. And I even went as far in that demand letter that I sent to the school district to request that it was something that was made a part of the new student orientation, because a lot of students, especially when you start talking about racism and things like that, there are issues with belonging. Students who are bullied want to belong. And these predators, digital predators is what they are. They target students and they lure them by acceptance. And so some people, believe that racism is taught in the homes. In a lot of cases, that is true. But in other cases, especially that we've come across, it is not being just facilitated in the home. These students are connecting with individuals that they meet digitally and joining organizations or groups or clubs and things like that that teach it. Parents also have a responsibility, as well as educators, to stay abreast on what racism really looks like. It's not always going to be so blatant with a swastika or a white sheet and a hood. It looks different. The language is different. And so, digital safety, kind of like a stranger danger program, I think is something that is a first start. It's something that we can do to put out there about the dangers and what to be aware of. You have hackers, that can get into the different portals and stuff. Do our students know what to do if that happens? No, they don't. And someone has to teach them that. It's up to us as parents and as the community. And I commend Jasmine. I wanted to go back to something that she said. She said that she wanted to go to a school that she felt more comfortable at, and so she went to Rancho. That has everything to do with the teacher referral process, okay? There are, outside of the fact that the teachers were not standing for anti-racism, there was an opportunity there that was missed. But in addition, and the administrators, but in addition to that, students go to the accelerated programs by way of their teachers acknowledging that they're gifted or advanced. Only 3,100 African American students were in accelerated programs last year. 3,100 out of our entire district, actually 3,165 to be exact. And when you talk about technical programs, we're talking about digital safety and things like that. Only 11% of our African American students, that was our completion rate for our African American students in technical programs last year. These are things that are ingrained in the core of our educational system. And so digital safety is just one point. When you get to the next level of what happens when the children are educated and when they do have access to these things, who's acknowledging it and referring them to the next level and getting them what they need?
And so that's a good point to bring in Linda Cavazos right now. And Linda, a lot of these things that we talk about, let's face it, we're talking about bridging that divide, oftentimes takes funding. And that's an issue with us here in the Clark County School District.
Yes, it is, Todd, and it's been an issue for many, many years. I've been out of the classroom as a teacher for over 20 years, and I can remember attending school board meetings. I have been up to Carson City many times advocating, and it is a challenge that we are facing right now. And again, I feel that essential communication between our district and with the state and with our legislators, honest communication has to be prevalent. We have to not only be able to say, this is how much money we need, but this is what we intend to do with it. And right now we are facing cuts to various programs that they're very hard. They're very hard for the parents, they're very hard for the teachers, the staff, but the people who bear the brunt of this are our children, our students. And if you have a child that really needs some special services, if you have a child in ELL, or one of our children, say, that has some very specific, say, occupational therapy needs. I can help a child with their emotional and their mental health needs, but I'm not an occupational therapist. And if we have programs that are cut there, we are left not being equitable. So, equality is important, but if we don't have the if we don't have the equity, I'm sorry, long day, we're not going to be able to put the pieces together, Todd. And funding is a huge part of that. So yes, it's something that's been around for a long time, but I think that it's going to take everyone in our community really stepping up to the plate here.
And Dr. Carla, because you're in CCSD, I mean, what's the solution for that? When you have a parent who feels that their kid has tested as a gifted student and is telling their teacher, hey, I want my kid to advance, and she or he is saying no. I mean, who do they go to? Who can they talk to? Who are their resources?
I think the very next step for that child, if the family is feeling that they're not getting that support from the teacher, is to go to their principal. Their principal, should be able to then find out the resources for the student. If the family feels that they are not receiving that support from the school, or they feel that they cannot reach the school or really get an answer that they're satisfied with, they need to go to the region office, and then that will be the next step after the principal, so that they can get that support. But if I may go back to that question about how to help our students be safe, because I think the emotional well-being of the students is and of course their physical safety is our foremost priority here. And I was thinking about the bullying and the fact that if we are not in a classroom or at the school, sometimes we pick up things just by looking at how the kids are acting, or maybe a gesture, and we're not going to be able to do that. We're not going to be able to just see from across the hallway, Carla, something's going on with her because of the way that she's acting. So I will tell parents, and I will invite and encourage parents, be vigilant with the kids. Ask your own kids, questions, where are you? Become their friends on Facebook and Instagram and I don't know how many applications are now. My kids are grown up now, but ask them, to become friends in there so that they can be looking. And another important piece, I think, that the entire community can help our students and the well-being of our students is asking about their friends. Ask your kids about how their friends are feeling, if they're being treated well, how they, if anybody's being bullied, we can ask those questions, because many times the child being bullied will not say much, but the friend can say, you know what, my friend is being bullied, and then reach out to the school so that we can provide that help for the students. And me being new to the curriculum side of the house, I'm going to be looking for this digital safety classes for students and introduce that into the curriculum, because it's not even fifth grade. It's now everybody. The younger they are, the more vulnerable they might be. So great idea from the parents. Thank you.
And that's a good point to pick up on. We're talking about parents and parental involvement, and so oftentimes in minority communities, we see parents who, through language barriers or through job obligations or whatever the case may be, may not be able to be as involved in their children's education. How do you get them on board? How do you speak to them? And how much of an issue is that? And when we talk about bridging the divide.
So I can start there. I'm sure that everybody has their opinions on that. And even when I was a principal, I realized, I think that goes back to our own biases. Sometimes in the schools, we think, this group of parents, Black or Latino or whatever group I want to put them as an individual, they are not interested. And I absolutely believe that's not true. Every parent wants the very best for their own kids. And sometimes because of how they have been treated in the system when they were kids themselves, they don't feel comfortable coming. So I'm not going to wait for a parent to come in. We should go out and reach out to them, talk to them. I remember, even going to the community centers. I had my school, I have my gymnasium. I will go out there. I will go and meet them and get involved. And when they see it's somebody who cares, it's somebody who can come out and wants to reach out to me and not to tell me what to do, but to ask me questions. As a parent, how can I reach out to your child better? Your child is acting this, how can we do, how can we support? I think we can build that bridge. Broken record goes back to the relationships, right? But it's not only with the children, but also with the parents, and treating them with respect. Not because of what they're wearing or because of the color of their skin, or I am Latino, so I have been there as well. It's because we are human beings in understanding that we want the best for our children.
Tammy, can you add to that? Or do you have an opinion?
Absolutely. I mean, Dr. Loria brings up a good point. Many of our families might be afraid to connect with their schools because of their past situations or things that they've dealt with. I implore them maybe to step outside your comfort zone and reach out and do that, because many of our schools have counselors, have social workers, have programs like Communities in Schools, where we want to be able to support not only the student, but the family and help eliminate whatever barrier that is that's keeping them from being successful. So we definitely want to make sure that we're doing that on a variety of levels. So we definitely implore our families and our students to continue to do that. Let's face it, our families and our students that are in this situation were struggling before this pandemic. And now this pandemic has just exacerbated this on even a larger level that we've continued to let them down. And it's our job as a community to stand up and make some hard decisions and start looking at funding education, looking at how we want to be a community. Where do we want to be in 10 years? What do we want to be in 20 years? It's time to do that and link forces and join it together.
Yeah, Jay.
I agree, and I wanted to just kind of take it a step further. I think that sometimes we overcomplicate things. What worked in the 70s and 60s in some cases still works now. Old fashioned, put your feet on the ground, don't shake hands right now, but but human interaction goes a long way. The parents that I connect with from all walks of life do not watch the board meetings. There's more teachers and educators and teachers' aides on those calls than there are parents. You have to have parental involvement where the parents are. And Community in Schools, I had an opportunity to work with them when they were at Elaine Wynn, and they do a lot of different Title I sites as well. And I just love their program. They do these these chat and choose, and the police department is there in the area, especially in the Cambridge community and different things like that. That's the way it's parents in there connecting with not just the school police, but the police officers that patrol that community. Those police officers know those kids by name. They know the parents, and the liaisons that work within the Title I program. They can tell you so much about every school. So while we're in the midst of the pandemic, we can take the opportunity to connect through chat and choose with our parents. Put it out there. Every principal or dean or whoever, schedule a monthly, same week of the month. Don't change it and be sporadic all over the place. You know what I mean? People need to know where to find you. They need to know where you are. And having, I know Dr. Jara does Java with Jara or something like that. That needs to come down at a school level so that the parents can connect with the leaders within that school and the students as well. There's a lot of student clubs. I love the fact that Miss Jasmine, this young lady, is on the call. The students have their clubs that they're not socializing with. How are we ensuring that they still have social interaction with the student clubs and the student bodies? All we have lost is physical interaction, but we have not lost the means to be able to communicate and relate with people. And if we would just simplify our approaches just a little bit, we may get a lot further. Even with the counselors, I know that there's a lot of counselors. We can collaborate within the community. There's so many nonprofit organizations and individuals in the community who would love to help our 400 counselors in CCSD who are struggling. We've got to build bridges and extend olive branches, or we will not succeed.
I just want to add a quick programming note. I know we said we're going to occupy about an hour of your time. We are obviously beyond that deadline. We had some technical issues there. We were offline for about 5 minutes or so. So we could continue on here for a couple more minutes, but just want to get everyone to start thinking about maybe wrapping up some of your thoughts or addressing some issues that you feel like we may need to still address. You know, I talked to Jasmine in trying to look ahead now and a sort of a positive note. What are you looking forward to for your 11th grade year?
I'm looking forward to learning new things. I feel like it's going to be an exciting year. It's going to be different than all the past years, but I feel like I'm ready for the year. And I'm just excited to meet the new teachers. It's different, but I'm still excited.
Have you been talking to any, I'm sure you've been talking to some of your friends. What do you guys talk about as far as any fears that you have going into the new school year? Or we talked about COVID and just the racial tensions that are going on in this world right now. So is that a topic of conversation, or are you and your friends just focusing on the school year?
Right now with like the whole George Floyd that happened, we were talking about it and we were putting our opinions about it and what we can do to make a difference without causing any harm. And mostly the first topic was, how was school going to be? Because we were all really confused and worried that we wouldn't go back to school, because most of us were looking forward to the year because we were separated from each other for so long that we were like, yeah, well, we might end up going to school for 2 days at least, but at least we're going to see each other. But we got that taken away too. So we were just hoping that the whole COVID goes away soon or gets better so we can go to school.
Jasmine, I have to say, you are an impressive young woman. I can't wait to see what you do in the future. And open up to our panelists. Is there an area or something that we missed, or do you have some final thoughts you want to leave us with?
I feel like... I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Linda. Go ahead, Linda.
I wasn't sure. Didn't know whether to raise my hand or what. I just want to take this opportunity here. This is kind of cheating a little bit, but Jasmine, I wonder if you would be interested in serving on the student advisory committee that we have with the district. We're looking at how we're going to do that virtually, and we try to get at least one representative from each high school, and I would be absolutely honored. I'm the trustee who works on that committee. I would be absolutely honored if you would consider being on that committee, on that student advisory committee.
I would love to.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
making connections. Bridging the divide.
I could not let that opportunity get past me. So I will be in contact with you, Jasmine, and I so appreciate your courage and your willingness to share tonight. My hat's off to you, dear.
Yeah, I feel like I had to speak about this subject because it's an important subject, and I feel like it has to be heard, because if it's not heard, then how are we going to fix the problem?
You're absolutely correct. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I would just like to add, this is tough for everybody, but crisis reveals character, right? And when things like this happen, you get creative and you step outside your comfort zone and you do something maybe that you've never done. So at CIS, that's one of the things we're doing, is we're trying to flip the switch. Instead of putting communities in the schools, we're going to go back out and put school in the communities to make sure that we're connecting with everybody. And I just, I encourage everybody to just think of what you can do to support your school, your communities, your neighborhoods. How can you reach out? How can we continue to move forward and be successful for kids like Jasmine. I mean, Jasmine is our future. And if our future looks like Jasmine, I'm ready for it.
Alicia, what about you? What last words of encouragement, advice do you want to give to our viewers?
Well, we haven't talked about it, but something that's been on my heart and mind since the pandemic happened, and now knowing that we're going back to school August 24th, is the high homeless youth population that may not get a Chromebook and internet access. And so if there's something that we can all do on our own level to, try to reach them, because I feel like they're going to need some support as much as they needed it before. They especially need it now. For me, with the time that I'll be able to work from home, that's going to be an initiative for me to try to reconnect with homeless youth. And really, I just encourage any parent who's listening and any student that we need each other, and we have to build the relationships together. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Not to be afraid to get any help from any organization, because when the schedules hit and the students are home and running their own schedule while parents are at work, you're going to need the help from either a family member or a community member. Someone has to help. And even just with technology, it's not easy. So as far as something goes wrong and if you're not technically savvy, who's going to help you? So just reach out and try to get as much help as you can.
I think that's a great point, that as a group of students, it's going to be especially vulnerable as we go forward. Dr. Loria?
Yes, I just want to first of all thank everyone, the community, the parents, for their patience. I know these are uncharted territories. It is new to all of us, and we're trying to do our very best with the information we have, because it changes every day, to make the best decisions to support our students. I do want to say that I am excited. I'm completely scared, and I wake up in the middle of the night every single night. But at the same time, I am excited because COVID, like we have said, it just forced us to talk about these inequities that we have had for decades. And now we have been forced to talk about them, and it was about time. And so I am excited because maybe this world pandemic is going to yield some better results in the way that we do business in our schools and in the community. This is not only the schools. And Tammy, to continue building bridges, I need to connect with you, because one of the things that I'm working on right now with my team, is to provide guidance and supports to those communities, community resources that are going to be working with our students, so that they can also support students get in line and get the classroom. So I need to connect with you, please. And Alicia, with the homeless students, I think, yes, the laptop and our homeless students, we have about 11,000, if I'm not mistaken, homeless students. I can expect that number is going to go up now with the situation. But our homeless students are candidates for hotspots, so they can actually have a computer wherever they go. They will have that connectivity. So if you do not get that support, connect with me and I'll connect you with the right person. I'm going to make sure that I bring this up to cabinet so that we are making sure we're taking care of our most fragile students.
See, Tammy, you're a Zoom pro there, putting your website, your email up on the screen there. I appreciate that. But if anyone wants to, we'll make sure everyone here at Channel 13 will make sure that everyone has a way to connect with each other. Thank you again so much, everyone, for your time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Alicia. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate everybody.
Thank you so much for.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for joining us. I think that this is all a part of us bridging the divide and connections being made. So I just want to thank you all again on behalf of Channel 13. And I think this was a great, positive panel. And I think this is the first step in changing our culture in our school system. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having us.